Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll take you through a question on pilot paper December 2022, and this was a question on project evaluation and a net present value. And YouTube is informing me that 85% of you people are watching the videos without subscription. So I urge you to subscribe to my channel so that we can hit the 1,000 mark within the next 30 days. Without much ado, let me introduce this question. So I'll read the question. It was question 23. So it was part A. And the questions read, you are a financial management consultant in an investment firm. A potential client requests you to analyze an investment with the following features. 1, the cost of the investment is shillings 10 million. The investment pays out a sum of shillings X at the end of the first year. This payout grows at the rate of 10% per year for 11 years. Required, Roman 1, if your discount rate is 15%, calculate the minimum value of X that should attract the investor to make the investment. That's 3 marks. Roman 2, the respective NPVs of the investment if the discount rates were to range between 10% and 15%. That's also 3 marks. Then Roman 3, assume that you have the 3 project scenarios as outlined below. So you have scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. We have the discount rate, we have the initial cost, we have the starting cash flow, then we have growth in initial cash flow. So prepare detailed outcomes of the project under each of the above scenarios. Yeah, so this is how you are supposed to handle this question. So first you have to realize that this is a question testing on your knowledge on how to calculate the net present value. So this is what I will do. So I'll start with the first part. They're saying you are a consultant and a client has requested you to analyze an investment with the following features. Yeah, so I'll start there. The cost of the investment, this is the initial cash outlay is 10 million. Then the investment pays out a sum of X at the end of the first year. So it means that this X, which we don't know, is the initial cash inflow. Yeah, so it's the initial cash inflow at the end of the first year. So at the first year, we'll have an X cash inflow. So this payout grows at the rate of 10% per annum per year for 11 years. So you are required, if your discount rate is 15%, to calculate the minimum value of X. Yeah, so the value of X, which is the cash inflow at year 1, that should attract the investor to make the investment. So this is how you are supposed to tackle this question. So I'll start. So we'll have years. We are told the project is for 11 years. So we'll have years there. And then we'll have cash flows. Cash flows there. So the first year is the year of investment. It's 0. So I'll just I'll fill this. So I'll go to fill, then I go to series, then it's within the column. So I'll pick the column, then my step value will be 1, then I'll end at 11 years. So I just say okay. And I'll have the years all the way up to the 11th year. So the cash flow, my initial cash flow is the 10 million, the cost of investment. So I'll put it in negative because it's a cash outflow. Yeah, so I just say negative 10,000. Sorry, 10 million. Yeah. So let's say yes. Okay. And this. Yeah, so that's my initial investment, the cost of the investment. So I'll put it negative because it's a cash outlay for the project. So we are told that the investment pays out a sum of X at the end of first year. So this sum X, we don't know it. So that value should be here. But we are told that the growth rate was 10%. So I just say here, growth rate. So let me just write 10%. But the discounting rate which we are going to use is 15%. So let me put the discounting rate there as 15%. Yeah, I think that's the only information I was to capture for me to do this question. So now that we don't know X, X is a cash inflow at the end of year one. So this is what we are going to do. So you can use any value. So I'll guess it. I'll use 100. Let me just pick 100 shillings as the cash inflow for year one because we don't know it. The investment pays out a sum of this at the end of the first year. This payout goes at the rate of 10% for 11 years. So you are saying if your discount rate is 15%, calculate the minimum value of X that should attract the investor to make the investment. So let me see the growth of this 10, of this 100 all the way to 11 years. So I'll go to the second year and I'll just pick this and I'll multiply by 1 plus the growth rate. The growth rate was 10%. Yeah, but I'll lock this 10% completely because it's constant all through. So that when I drag, sorry. Yeah, so I'll just put a bracket, then I enter. So I'll lock it. Yeah, you see, it's a growth rate of 10%. So I have 110. So when I drag all through, it will just copy the formula. So I'll just drag up to here, 11. Yeah, and you can see the values. Yeah, this value here, you can use any number. You can even use 100,000. You can even use 200,000. You can even use 1 million. Yeah. So I've decided to use the 100. You can even use 1 as the first value because we are guessing any value. Yeah. So you can see the trend all the way. So what I'll do with this, I'll now calculate the NPV, the net present value. Yeah. So my NPV here just equals to NPV. Yeah. Then I'll start with the rate. The rate was the discounting rate, which is 15. Then I'll select the values from here, year 1. Then I'll close the bracket. Then I'll add back the cash outlay. Then I'll get my value there. Let me expand this. Yeah, so we'll have that value there. Let me change it to general. Remove that percentage. Yeah, so we'll have negative 99. Yeah, negative 999,226.516 as the NPV. And when you go to required number 1, they're saying if a discount rate is 15%, calculate the minimum value of X. So the minimum value of X will be this. This is the minimum value of X. That's at year 1 is what is supposed to be minimum. That should attract the investor to make the investment. For someone to invest on a project, because this project evaluation, then PV should be equals to or greater than 0. Then PV is always supposed to be equals to or greater than 0. Yeah, so that's whereby you can advise someone to invest on a project. That's where the project is viable, where the net present value should be 0 or greater than 0. So this is what we are going to do. We'll use the data analysis to identify the value of X. Yeah, so this is what we'll do. We'll go to data. Then yeah, just go to data. Then you go to what if analysis. Then we'll go to goal seek. Goal seek will help us to identify whether NPV, where NPV will be 0. So you say you set cell. So the cell that will set is the cell with the NPV, this one, to value 0. Yeah, I said that for the project to be viable, it must have an NPV of 0 or an NPV greater than 0. But I'll have to change which cell. I'll change the cell at first year, the X cell, this one, the one I guessed. So I'll change it. Yeah, then I just say okay. So when I say okay, the values will change automatically. So when it changes, you can see the NPV now is 0. So we can only advise an investor to buy the product Yeah, so the NPV, you can see the NPV now is 0. So at a point when NPV is 0, then it means that the project is viable. You can only advise an investor to pick up a project or an investment when the NPV is 0. So the NPV has changed to 0, and you can see the minimum. The minimum value of X here is this value here. Yeah, is this value over here. So the minimum value of X equals to, yeah, so it's this value here. Yeah, and we have found this value by changing the NPV to 0 through goal seek. Yeah, through goal seek. Yeah, I've also taught about the two-way table and the scenario analysis also. So I'll yeah, so that's the minimum value of X there. So that with that you are done with part 1, and you get your three marks. So I'll go to part 2, where they're saying the respective NPVs of the investment required the respective NPVs of the investment if the discount rates were to range from 10% and 15%. So I just come here and say the discounting. So these are the discounting rates. Discounting rates, and they were supposed to range from 10%. So I'll just start with 10%. Then because of time, I won't fill all the way to 15. I'll just go to fill, series, then it's on the column, and my step value will be 1%, and I'll stop at 15%. I just say okay. So when I say okay, the values just come over. Very easy. Yeah, so we have here we'll have the NPV. The NPV is 0. So I'll just pick this. It be 0. So this is a one-way data table. Yeah, because we only have a column. There's no row. Yeah, we only have the column. So data, we'll use the data table to identify the NPV for this other percentage, because it ranged from 10 to 15. And we know that at 15%, it was, the NPV was 0. So we want to get from 10 to 14%. So this is what you do. You just highlight this. Then you'll go to data. Then you go just to what if analysis. Then you go to data table. Then there's the row input. There's no row input here. We have the column input cell. So under the column input cell, we add 15%. So just go where we put the 15% here. So just pick this, just select that 15%, then you say okay. Yeah, so once you say okay, the values will change automatically. So just come here and check. So at 10%, the NPV was 292.8519. At 11%, it was 225.0247. All the way up to 14%. And you see at 15%, it's 0. Yeah, which is true that NPV at 15% discounting rate was 0. So that's how you are supposed to tackle part 1 and 2 of that question. So this is the answer for part 2. This is how you are supposed to do, know the discounting rate. So they were testing whether you know how to use the data, the one-way data table. Yeah, so I'll go to the last part, which is Roman 3. Assume that you have 3 project scenario as outlined below. Scenario 1, 2, and 3. And we have the rates there. So this is what I'll do. I'll start with scenario 1. Yeah, start with scenario 1. So I'll just do it here. Start with scenario 1. Yeah, and I'll just bold it. I'll bold this. Yeah, and I'll just give it a color. So let me give it yellow. Yes, I'll give it yellow. So the same way, yeah, the same way we arrange this, yeah, it's the same way we'll arrange the scenarios. So I'll start with the year 1. So I'll start with the years, and we have the cash flows. Yeah, so the years are there's still 11. So I'll start with 0. Then I'll just go to fill. Then I just fill all through. series, then it's a column, then it's my step value is 1, then I'll go up to 11. Yeah, so the cash flow, the initial cost will be here. So I just introduce a negative sign. Under scenario 1, initial cost was sold is 10 million. So I just pick it and introduce the negative sign. Then we are told that the starting cash flow, which is now for year 1, will be this. So I just select it. And then we are told that the growth rate in initial cash flow was 10%. So I'll do the same thing. So I just say for year 2, it will be year 1 times bracket 1 plus the 10%. But the 10% is constant. So I lock it by F4 completely. Yeah, I lock it by F4 completely. Then I enter. So once I enter, I'll just drag this all through up to year 11. Then I just come here and calculate because they want to prepare detailed outcomes of the project under each of the above scenarios. So these are the cash flow. So I'll calculate the NPV. Yeah, calculate the NPV. So my NPV here will be equals to NPV. So the rate, what was the rate? The rate is still 15%, because we're using 15%. Yeah, the discounting rate here is 15%. So I just pick this. Then I'll say comma. Then I'll select the values from year 1. Then you close the bracket. Then you add, because this was negative, so you add it back. So I'll say equals to that, yeah. And we'll have this as the NPV. So let me bold it. Yeah, so that you can see it clearly on your side. So the NPV under scenario 1 was 1.602,257.01. So I'll go to scenario 2. Go to scenario 2. And I'll also bold this. Then I'll give it a color. Let me see. Yeah, let me work with the, let me work with this light blue. Yeah, so I'll do the same thing. I'll start with ears. So I can as well copy, because this paper is all about time. So I can copy and just come and pick this and Control C. Yeah, you Control C, then I just come here and say Control V. Yeah, then it copy all through. Then I'll also go and copy the cash flows here. Yeah, that's all. So I'll just start with the initial cash outlay. So I just say equals to, then negative. Yeah, under scenario 2, the initial cost is 15 million. So I just pick it. Yeah, then my start cash flow under scenario 2 is 2 million. So I'll pick the 2 million. Yeah, then for the second year now it will be 2 million times bracket 1 plus, what was the growth rate? The growth rate here is 8%. Yeah, you can see it's 8%. So I'll lock it completely because it's constant all through up to the 11th year. So I'll enter. So once I enter that, I'll just drag all the way to 11th year, and the values change automatically. So I'll come here and calculate the NPV. Yeah, and I'll say equals to NPV. So the rate for the NPV is the discounting rate. Under scenario 2, it was 10%. So I'll pick 10%. Then I'll select from here 1. So I just select all through. And I'll add back the initial cash outlay. So I'll have the NPV as 3.2. So I'll just, let me bold that. So I'll go to scenario 3. Scenario 3, then I'll just bold it. Yeah, scenario 3. Yeah, let me give it the green. Yeah, the green outlook. And let me give it the green outlook. And I'll just copy this the same way. So I'll just come here and copy. Yeah, I can copy from there. Just say Control C. Then yeah, just say Control V. Yeah, then I'll just copy the cash flows. So year 0, the initial cash outlay. So I'll put a negative sign. So the initial cost is this. So I'll just pick the 20 million. Yeah, then the first year, starting cash flow, which is for the first year, will be this. So pick it. Yeah, so for the second year, it will be this times the growth rate. Yeah, so the growth rate will be 1 plus the growth rate. So the growth rate was 7%. So I lock the 7% because it is constant. Yeah, it's constant. So I enter. So when I enter, I just have to drag all the way to here 11 and log the values there. Yeah, so after that, I just come and calculate the net present value. So my net present value is the NPV. Just say NPV. NPV is the rate. Yeah, so I'll start with the discounting rate. Yes, 13%. Yeah, then I'll select from year 1 all the way. Then I'll add back the initial. No, sorry. I don't know why I have to select it. Yeah, you go to NPV, then I'll choose the rate. The rate here under NPV scenario 3 is 13%, comma. Yeah, then I'll select from here 1, this one. Yeah, select all the way here, 11. Then I'll close, then I add back the cash outlay. So I'll just come there and I'll get the NPV to be 10 million. So the NPV is 10.084669. So I just bold it so that it can be clear. Yeah. So that's how you are supposed to handle this question. And you'll get your, yeah, the question was 8 plus 3, that's 11. 11 plus 3, that's 14 marks. So you have to score 14 marks, yeah, by doing this. So this is how you are supposed to tackle this question. And until next time, see you and bye-bye.